and welcome to Safety Tavern's video on warehouse forklifts. We will be discussing specifically only warehouse forklifts. We will not be talking about telehandlers or skytracks as some of us call them. We will also not be talking about man-riding forklifts, the ones that pick the actual person up. We're only going to be talking about this kind of forklift right here. And in true Safety Tavern fashion, we've stolen some videos from other people. The first one comes to us from Toyota. This one is not so much about how to operate forklifts as much as it's kind of a showcase. Now, granted, this is specifically Toyota's brands, but they do a really good job of explaining different types of material picking equipment. So if you have a couple of different pieces of equipment that you have available to you, different pieces of equipment have different specific benefits to operating each one. And I wanted to kind of showcase different kinds of forklifting equipment. Again, this is a warehouse forklift class, but I wanted to give you a broad sweeping, these are other types of equipment. Here we go.
All warehouses and distribution centers are not created equal. Some have the space for standard width aisles, about 12 feet, and the traditional counterbalance sit-down forklifts that can operate in them. Others, however, configure their aisles in widths considerably narrower. Because real estate and space is at a premium in these tighter aisle operations, many businesses expand in the only direction they can, up rather than out. The fact is, aisle widths vary from location to location. That's why Toyota has a wide range of forklift solutions to meet your variable aisle width needs. Start with the Toyota Core IC Cushion. It's an industry-leading multi-use forklift that easily crosses the boundaries between warehouses, manufacturing plants, retail, and more. With lift capacities from 3,000 to 6,500 pounds and Toyota's patented system of active stability, the dependable, reliable Core IC Cushion forklift typically operates in 12-foot aisles. However, lighter capacity Core IC Cushion models can operate in aisles closer to 11 feet wide. Then there's Toyota's 4-wheel Core electric forklift. It provides a smooth ride, is also equipped with Toyota's SAS system, and it's an excellent solution for most indoor applications. With a compact model available, the Core electric forklift has the same capacity as the Core IC Cushion, but with the ability to operate comfortably in 11-foot aisles. Skilled forklift operators with certain models can work in aisles between 10.5 and 11 feet, depending on load size. Next, meet the Toyota 3-wheel electric forklift. It can tackle big jobs even in small spaces. In leaner aisles and tighter spaces, the 3-wheel electric is a multi-use forklift that leads the industry in runtime, travel speeds, and lift lowering speeds. Available in cushion or pneumatic tires, it easily navigates 10 to 11-foot wide aisles, has a lifting capacity up to 4,000 pounds, and a lift height of up to 23 feet. Equipped standard with wet disc brakes, the Toyota 3-wheel electric forklift is a do-everything forklift and an immediate upgrade to any facility. It also provides a quick return on investment with increased productivity and lower maintenance costs. Next, there's Toyota's Dock-to-Stock Star, the stand-up rider forklift. With a lifting capacity of up to 4,000 pounds, operating capability in aisles as narrow as 10 feet, and a lift height of 23 feet, the capability of the Toyota stand-up rider forklift is at the top of its class and one of the most versatile forklifts in Toyota's product line. It's built with the ultimate performance and comfort in mind, delivering improved ergonomics, reliability, and durability while reducing service intervals. The stand-up rider operates efficiently at the loading docks, inside trucks, and in narrow spaces between tight, high racking. Finally, there's Toyota's top solution for narrow aisles, the Toyota Reach Truck. Available in single and double reach models, the Toyota Reach Truck can navigate aisles as narrow as 7 feet, depending on model and load size.
All right, our next video comes to us from Sheel Talks, made by Sheel Technologies. Now this one, yes, it goes into warehouse forklifts, but it also talks a lot of just good safety practices involving handling materials specifically in a warehouse setting, so it's definitely applicable. Let's get it on.
Warehouse safety. A warehouse is one of the most dangerous places to work. It is important to understand common warehouse dangers and hazards because they can cause injuries, and in extreme cases death. Workers in warehouses must be aware of many potential dangers to stay safe on the job. Employees should follow the following some points for working in a warehouse. All areas should be kept clean and free of debris. Never attempt to operate any machinery without the proper training. Employees should inspect ladders before use ladder in warehouse. Immediately report any potential safety hazards to supervisors. If something has spilled on the floor, clean it up immediately. At workplace, employees should always follow proper lifting techniques. Do not use mobile phone in warehouse. Forklift safety tips. A forklift is a powered truck used to carry, lift, stack, or tear materials. Forklifts are extremely useful workplace vehicles, as long as they are used safely and appropriately by operators. Forklifts can be dangerous too, as they account for 25% of injuries at work. The following forklift safety tips will help you and those you work with stay safe around forklifts. Always wear a seatbelt while operating a forklift. Know the load limits of the forklift before operating. Sound the horn at blind corners and at intersections. Do not let anybody ride on the forks. Keep the forklift in well-maintained condition. Machine safety tips. Machine can cause injuries in many ways. Injury can occur if the machine is not working properly, or when the machine is used by an inexperienced and untrained worker. Follow these safety tips to avoid serious machine injuries. Check the machine is well maintained and fit to be used, and also check machine working properly and that all the safety measures are in place. Guards, isolators, locking mechanisms, emergency off switches, etc. Never attempt to operate a machine that you haven't trained and authorized to operate. Use the machine properly and in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Make sure you are wearing the appropriate protective clothing and equipment required for that machine, such as safety glasses, hearing protection, and safety shoes. Moving machine parts like gears, chains, belts and conveyor belts have pinch points, which can grab a finger or your flesh, causing injury. Machine guards should also be protected when working near machines. Don't use machine or appliance that has a danger sign or tag attached to it. Danger signs should only be removed by an authorized person who is satisfied that the machine is now safe. Don't distract people who are using machines. Don't remove any safeguards, even if their presence seems to make the job more difficult. Always know how to turn off and de-energize the machine you operate in case there is an emergency.
Our next video comes to us from TAFE, Intro to Outro YouTube channel. And this dude is definitely from across the ocean. I don't know whether he's like Australian or maybe English or Kiwi. I don't know what this dude is, but he does a really good walk around inspection and gives some really good controls on it. So let's get it on.
So, prior to operating a forklift truck, a site inspection must be completed to identify hazards that may be an issue. Some hazards may include overhead service lines, power lines, surrounding buildings, doorways, pedestrians, uneven surfaces, inclines, and weather. Correct measures must be utilised. Correct signage. Once you have those measures in place, you should be right to go. So, it's really important that we carry out a complete site assessment and identify hazards where necessary, and take the right measures to control them, because if we don't, we could miss things which could result in serious injury or even death to yourself and other people. Be sure to understand which PPE you require to utilise on the site that you're on. We now need to conduct a pre-operational check on the forklift truck. I preferably like to start on the front of the machine, and it's commonly known as the once walk around, where you walk all the way around the machine and check all the parts as you go. You end up back in one spot and you know that you're not going to miss anything. So starting at the front of the machine, I like to check the fork arms first. Firstly, the security, make sure that they're locked in and they're not going to slide along the bridge. Check the condition of the fork arms. Check that there's no cracks on the heels. Also the condition. Make sure there's no burrs, and also they're not bent. Have a good look underneath the front of the machine. Check for any oil leaks. We can better check that once we get on and conduct a pre-start check, where we get on, move the machine backwards, checking our brakes. We can have a better look then. Check the side shift cylinder. Check the seals for no leaks, the connection points, and no leaks on the hoses. We then check the load guard. Some people call this a backrest. We check the security on all 4 bolts and the structure, all the welds, no damage. We then check the tension on the chain. Make sure that they've got even tension and there's not one that's too loose. Check the hoses, the hydraulic hoses, for any oil leaking down them or any damage. Where the chains come up over the pulleys, we'll make sure that they come down and that there's locking nuts on each side. With the main lifting cylinder, check for no oil leaks coming out of the seal. Moving up to the mast, check warning decals. Check down inside where the rollers are. There's no debris and that those rollers are going to travel freely up inside. The hoses inside the mast, that they go over the pulleys, and the condition of the hoses, there's no oil leaks coming down those. Moving around, we come to the outside of the mast, and we check the welds, the structure. There's no cracks in them. We check the lifting cylinders, the secondary lifting cylinders. There's no oil leaks coming out of the seals. Also, it's security and the hoses coming down over these pulleys, down to these connection points and right down in behind the mast. Whilst we're here, we check the tilt cylinder. Again, no leaks around any of the seals, the security, and also the keeper plates. They are well greased. Moving down to the front wheel, these are pneumatic tyres, so we're checking the correct pressure on all 4 tyres. We also check the wheel nuts, that none are loose. On other machines, you will find solid rubber tyres, and on those tyres, you're checking for big chunks, splits, uneven wear, but with these ones, it's the pressure. With the footstep, make sure it's free from debris, not going to slip on it, nice and clean. With the overhead guard, checking the structure, no cracks in the welds, all the way down. On the overhead guard and on both sides, we have mirrors, checking that they're nice and clean, not cracked. The condition of the blinkers and the headlights. Moving down inside the machine here, we check the tilt rams where they come through, that there's no oil leaks on the connection points, the keeper plates are there, well greased, no damage. On all pedals, we check that the rubbers are on the pedals. Moving up to the seat, we check the security of the seat and also the seat belt, that it actually locks. Coming over the top of the overhead guard here, we've got the dust filter. We've got the brake lights, we've got our flashing light, and also the other light on this side. For any damage, no cracks. We then check the back wheel. Again, checking the condition, good pressure, wheel nuts are all secure. Nice even wear. Staying at the back of the machine, we can have a good look underneath the machine for any oil leaks. We check down up inside here, the counterweight bolt, that it's nice and secure. With the gas bottle, we check firstly that it's secure, that it's in date. We then turn the gas on, 1.5 turns only. We can smell or listen for any gas leaks. We also check that there's gas in the bottle. Another important thing is to check the hoses and the connection points on that gas system. Coming back down to the rear tyre, exactly like the other side, we check even wear, check the wheel nuts, no big chunks out of the tyre or cracks if they're solid rubber. Checking the overhead guard on this side for its structure. Checking the controls, there's no major movements in them, and also the control decals on top, which control is what. Very important to check the data plate. Firstly, it needs to be attached and it needs to be legible. If we have a look down inside this area, we'll find the installation for the gas system on this machine, and it's been installed properly. One of the last things we check is the tyre. Again, just like the other side, we check each wheel nut for security, the tyre for its condition, and as we checked on the other side, we do check the tilt cylinder, again for its any leaks, the connection points, keeper plates, all the hoses and connection points on this side, security of this cylinder, no leaks, the condition of the mast. And that brings us round back to the front of the machine where we started and completes the pre-operational checks. The next thing we need to move on to is we need to open up the hood and actually check the liquid levels on this machine and oil levels. Okay, now we've completed our walk around. We've now opened up the hood of the machine, and I'm going to now identify where the liquid levels are and the oil levels. Okay, so underneath the foot plate here, we have our transmission fluid. All right. On some other machine types, you'll have brake fluid, but that's not on this machine. Down here, we have our hydraulic oil. It's at a nice high level. Okay, here we have our dust filter. And just over the side of the dust filter here, we have our engine oil. High, low, so good level. This machine also has two water levels. I will just go around the other side of the machine to show you those. Here we have our coolant overflow bottle. And the battery. Generally, batteries have water levels in them. This is a maintenance-free battery. With the battery also, very important to check the security. It's not going to fall over, and also the terminals are nice and clean. And they're the oil levels for the forklift truck. Now that we've completed our pre-operational checks and our walk around, we now need to conduct a pre-start check. This is where we get onto the machine, check all the electrical components and all the moving parts. I'm going to demonstrate that to you now. First up, we need to use our 3 points of contact. Very important not to hold onto the steering handle. Use our footstep, mounting handle on the seat, up we climb. First thing we do, must put on our seatbelt. Once we've done that, get some ignition, we'll check all electrical components. So I'll start with the lights, blinkers on both sides. I'm now going to start the machine to check the brake lights and other warning devices. Brake lights, flashing light, the horn, and also check the gauges. Before we actually start moving off on this machine, we need to check all lifting components. I'll demonstrate that now. full back tilt, full forward tilt. And it's very important to bring the mast back to a vertical position. Then need to do full side shift. Both directions and back to the center. Now I'm going to raise the mast to its full extent. All the while checking that the chains, hoses are running over those pulleys freely. And for any unusual noises. As you can see, I've selected the correct travel position with the fork arms. They're below the front axle height and close to the ground. I'm now going to engage the forward gear with my foot on the brake, and I'm going to check the handbrake. By simply releasing the foot on the pedal, it holds, that's fine. Release my handbrake. I'm going to check over both shoulders. It's a good idea to check your back wheels are straight. We know the area is clear around us. We're going to proceed forward to check the brakes. Front brakes are good. We're now going to do the same in reverse. Checking over both shoulders, always watching your travel direction. Rear brakes are great. The last thing we need to check is the steering on this machine. We need to do that by utilising the steering wheel in both directions to its full degree. Once again, always checking over your shoulders for any pedestrians. And that brings us to the completion of pre-start checks. So now I'm going to select the correct travel position with the fork arms prior to moving off. Release my handbrake, put the machine into forward gear and travel as squarely as I can up to the racking system. All in while keeping a distance away from the racks, so as you raise the forks up, you're not going to collect other pallets in the racking system. Now that I have my position, I'm selecting a neutral gear, applying the handbrake, making sure that the mast is in a vertical position prior to raising. Now that all those things are in place, I'm now going to raise the forks to the required height. Now I'm at the required height, I'm going to release my handbrake, apply the machine into forward gear and travel into the pallet. Now that we're all the way into the pallet, I'm going to raise the pallet and apply a slight back tilt. Now that we have the pallet in the correct position to reverse, we have two danger points we need to be aware of prior to reversing. That is that the pallet is going to be coming back with you as you're reversing and not getting caught in the racking system. Release our handbrake, apply the reverse gear, checking over both shoulders in the direction and the load all at the same time, and slowly reverse away out of the rack. Now that we're in the right position and clear from the rack, we've applied our handbrake, the machine's in a neutral gear, we're going to now lower the load down to the required travel position. Now that we're in the correct travel position, which is just off the ground surface and no higher than halfway up the front axle, we can release our handbrake, apply reverse gear and commence travelling. So prior to reversing off, we need to ensure that we check over both shoulders to make sure that no pedestrians have approached the machine. Whilst travelling in a forklift truck, it's very important to always check over both your shoulders and do a visual check all around, ensuring that no other vehicles are entering your site No other pedestrians are approaching your machine, all in while keeping the load at a nice low level to the ground. So at the end of the day, once you've finished operating your forklift truck, you must ensure that it's parked in a secure location, that you've removed the key, applied the handbrake, selected a neutral gear, make sure the forks are on the ground, the back wheels are straight, and the gas bottle is switched off. The location where these machines should not be parked is in front of firefighting equipment, first aid stations, access ways, walkways, emergency exit doors, and on blind corners.
Our next video comes to us from Briggs Equipment. This is about the safety triangle, just like any other piece of heavy equipment.
A forklift has 3 points of stability: the 2 front tires and the pivot point on the rear axle. If you draw a line between these points, you get the forklift stability triangle. As you raise and lower loads, make quick turns and tilt the mast, the center of gravity shifts inside the stability triangle. The center of gravity must remain inside this triangle, or the forklift will tip over.
Our next video comes to us from Halie Opat, and it is all about the data plates on the forklift. How to read them, where to pull the information that you need from them. Keep in mind, you can also look in the user manual that comes with this forklift, but there's always data plates on these things.
Knowing your truck includes knowing the size and weight of the load it can handle and how high it can lift that load safely. Every truck has limits to both the size and weight of loads it can safely handle. If you try to lift or carry a load that is too heavy, you could tip your truck over. Every truck lists its rated capacity at different lift heights and load centers. This information is listed here on the truck's capacity plate. Before using any truck, always check the capacity plate. Truck data and capacity plates will vary depending on the make and model. Your capacity plate may look different than the examples here. Note that many plates give values in more than one unit of measure. In this example, the first number is given in metric units, followed by English units in parenthesis. Use the unit of measure you are most familiar with. Here, a truck illustration indicates lift heights and load centers. Here, load height is indicated by A, and load center is indicated by B. Load center is a measurement of the load's center of gravity, both vertically and horizontally. The capacity section also includes a table with load weights listed under the capacity column. Load center measurements are also listed. The table will show you how high you can safely lift a load given the load weight and load centers. Always start by looking at the load centers. Select the load center that most closely matches the load you are handling. Let's say your load center is 600 millimeters, or 24 inches. With a load that has a load center of 600 millimeters, or 24 inches, this row shows how much weight the truck can safely lift to the full lift height. This row shows how high the truck can safely lift a maximum capacity load with the same load center. Note in this example that as the lift height increases, the weight of the load you can safely lift decreases. Other rows may show similar information for loads with different load centers. Note that the greater the load center, the less weight you can safely lift. Remember, the higher you raise the forks, the less weight you can safely handle. And the greater the load center of gravity, the less weight you can safely handle. The capacity plate also contains other important information. The truck weight with maximum battery section lists the weight of the truck with the heaviest rated battery installed, but does not include the weight of the load. Add this weight to the weight of the load you are handling to determine the total weight of your truck and load. The total weight is important to know when operating in weight-restricted areas, such as elevators. Check with your supervisor about weight-restricted areas in your workplace. The serial number of your truck is located here on the capacity plate. This number may be used to identify the truck on your daily checklist. The Truck Type section lists the type designations and areas of use for your truck. You need to know the areas where your truck can and cannot be used, and the product that you can or cannot handle with your truck. Ask your supervisor if you don't know. Your truck may have a maximum grade section on the data plate. The maximum grade is the steepest recommended slope for truck travel with the forks raised to a maximum of 305 millimeters or 12 inches. Ask your supervisor to point out any ramps, grades, or other areas that are too steep for your truck. Make sure you understand how to read your truck's capacity plate and know how much your truck can lift before you operate your truck.
All right, now we're going to crawl through a safety manual for a forklift. The one that I've specifically chosen is a Hyster H40 60XT Alpha 380. You probably don't have this exact forklift, but I wanted to crawl through the manual with you at a pretty slow pace. I'm not going to cover every single page. I'm just doing a brief highlights. You will need to do a review of your actual safety manual that came with this specific forklift. This is just an overview so we can talk about it. One of the first things I do on the safety manual is I flip open to the parts breakdown, or they call it the model description, whatever. I identify all the parts of this forklift. This way, as it's discussing things going forward, I know what it's talking about. The operator must receive training in how to use this forklift, understand potential hazards that exist in the place it's going to be operated in, understand the capabilities and limitations, become familiar with the construction of the lift truck, and see that it is maintained in good condition, and read and properly understand any warnings, instructions, as well as this manual itself. And here's a list of additional information you can pull stuff from. OSHA, which we'll cover later. ANSI we'll touch on very quickly, and then anything else. Right here is a key note, and you got to read this one. Hyster lift trucks are not intended for use on public roads. Pretty simple. Manufacturer didn't design it to be operated on a public road. Black triangle means could result in death or serious injury. White triangle means could result in moderate injury or property damage. Always use 3 points of contact when getting on and off the truck. You need to know the operations manual. Over here is one of the biggest violated things I've ever seen on forklifts across the entire nation. If you can't see, don't go. Travel in reverse if the load is blocking your forward vision. Literally, turn yourself around and drive in backwards. If you can't see where you're going, if you can't see around the load, either do that or get a wing walker, a ground guide, someone to walk not right next to your lift, but near you, and they can guide you. Either way, but we don't just plow forward not being able to see. No one's allowed underneath a load, operated only from the operator's seat. Keep all your appendages inside of the operator's compartment. Before dismounting, put it in neutral. Lower the cradle all the way down, put your forks in the dirt, and then set your brake, and then turn it off. Travel with the carriage as low as possible and tilted back. What this is talking about is when you're driving, and I've seen forklift drivers do this all the time, you don't want your forks directly straight, and you don't want your forks angled down. You want them pointed a little bit back. That way, if you happen to hit like a lip, or if you hit, just a little tiny bit of a pothole, your forks aren't going to catch. It'll skate over it. And then, you'll raise your forks up and go, okay, I need to raise it up. But if you have it flat, if you hit any kind of a dip with your tires, you're going to catch those forks on the ground. If you have it angled down, you're definitely going to catch the ground. That's why we always, when we're driving, angle it back a tiny bit. That way we skate over something instead of slamming into the concrete. If it is a fuel-powered one, meaning gas or diesel, if you look in here, it'll tell you exactly which, based off of the liter size, what kind of fuel this thing takes. If it's propane, it's propane. These are all the stickers that you should see across the entire machine itself. If you see them missing, talk to your supervisor. We need to get those stickers put back on. This is in the manual where it starts getting into a function test and how to do it. You have on, off, and start, and it tells you how to use those. A lot of us equipment operators will hop into a forklift and rotate the shifter knob on the left side or the right side. We'll rotate it, have no clue. Well, what does this do and what does that do? Look inside of your manual. It'll tell you what moving forward or moving it back. It'll tell you what all these little switches do. This is part of your function test, is to test this. Again, part of your function test, making it go up, making it go down. All of the handles on the right side, what do they do? And do it during the function test. Always make sure the parking brake is installed fully before walking away from the truck. And over here, we're quoting OSHA, 29 CFR 1910.100 table Z1 if you're operating it in places that don't have good ventilation, especially a confined space. The safety triangle, no, we weren't just making that up. It's been a very recognized thing. The safety triangle, further explained for this specific model. Report any damage or anything that's gone wrong to your supervisor immediately. Over here, this is that walk around check that British Kiwi whatever guy did. This is the walk around check. Things that you look at before you start the engine. Continuing this is still before you start the engine. Then you get on it and you start doing all of these things. Now you turn the engine on and you keep doing all the rest of this stuff. Seatbelt, 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 put on your seatbelt, put on your seatbelt. If there's a damaged part of the seatbelt or if the seatbelt itself just doesn't function, whatever, then do not operate the forklift. I've seen way too many people, warehouse and construction, driving forklifts without seatbelts on. And then I'll go ask them, oh, well, this thing doesn't work, so why are you operating it? If the seatbelt doesn't work, then the forklift doesn't work. That's how that works. For some reason, when operators operate a rear-driven vehicle like a forklift for the first time, it's almost like they lose their minds and they start whipping around real quick. Once they get the temperamentalness, the play within the brake and the gas and how to work all that, they start whipping around corners and turning really quick. Control your load. Especially the heavier it is, control the load. Control your speed, control what you're doing. Down here, inching is the movement of a lift truck that allows a slow travel speed while keeping the engine speed high for fast operation of the lift mechanism and prevents rollback on an incline. This is specifically if you're waiting on something and you need to keep inching it, revving it almost, in order to keep the engine moving. But again, control your speed if you have to do anything like this. Control your speed, control your speed, control your speed, and you've got a big butt. Warehouse forklifts have a big butt, and that big butt can kill people. There are two things that are going to kill somebody for the most part with that forklift. One are those forks and you stabbing somebody. That's why we drive with the forks down low. Because that way, if you do hit somebody, you're taking out their leg and they can still go home to their kids in a week after they get out of the hospital. Two, that big butt of yours is the easiest way for you to kill somebody on that forklift. Drive slow and control your speed. Narrow aisles are a beast to deal with in big forklifts like this. And I know there's way bigger ones, but even that warehouse forklift with a narrow aisle can get real touch and go. If you need to, get someone else to come watch you because you can't see what you're doing, or just to make it safer. Never be afraid to ask for help. We don't drive with the load elevated. We never drive with the load elevated. Never, ever. We drive with the load down to the ground, so this should never happen. We don't drive with a crazy amount of crap piled up on the front of it. Make sure that the forks are sticking out on the other side of the load. At the very least, it should be almost right there at the edge of it. The fork should not be barely hanging on to this pallet or whatever you're picking up. Now, if you look at this picture, that's definitely way too harsh of an angle. That's even in the manufacturer's manual. Yes, I'm telling you. That's way too harsh of an angle right there. But that's kind of what it needs to be. You need to be in and angled down a little bit. The Kiwi operator guy or the British guy, he didn't explain that super well, but you want to be angled down a little bit. That way you don't tear up the bottom of pallets or whatever you're trying to pick up. Right here. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to pay attention right here. This is the number one way I've seen people drop loads. The first thing you do when you pick up, you come up a tiny bit and then you angle back. The first thing you do is you do that angle back. We don't just come straight up with the load. You angle back, taking it into the cradle. Angle back. Come up, angle back, and then do whatever else you need to do. I've operated forklifts for 20 years, and hard braking, I've never really had a problem with it, but I've seen other people have problems with it. Do not slam those brakes unless you need to slam your brakes. Otherwise, you need to get used to how temperamental those brakes are. Just like whenever you have a rental car or you're driving somebody else's car, everybody's brakes get touchy at a different spot. They activate at a different spot. You need to figure out the brakes and do not slam those dadgum brakes while you have a load. For anyone who wants a quick, easy maintenance schedule, here you go. Almost every single one I've ever seen has a copyable maintenance schedule. Just take it over to a copy machine, make a copy of it, put the serial number at the very top of it, and good to go. Start using this as your maintenance log. If the forklift needs maintenance, then the forklift is shut down. Period. Do not operate a lift truck that needs repairs. This is unquestionable. If there is something that it could potentially compromise the safety of lifting, the safety of operating, or the safety of anyone nearby, anything that British dude talked about checking, if any of that is not good, if it needs repairs, then the machine is shut down and we don't use it. Period. I'm going to give you a bonus one, and that is called punch through. If you've operated a warehouse forklift for any amount of time, you have no doubt come into contact with a situation where you punch through and hit something on the other side that you didn't mean to. I've only been able to figure out one single way to prevent it, and it works pretty good. But you have to stay vigilant. You can't get all excited. You need to be worried about punch through every time you pick something up. Take this situation right here. If this person had gone all the way in, he would have run the risk of knocking that back pallet up. Because as you're punched through, the tips of your forks are picking up that back pallet. Or, like this situation, he punched through the wall. To prevent punch through, you need to do something called milking it. What you do is you come in about halfway into the pallet, come up a little bit, drive back a little bit, then set the pallet back down. You milk it off of the truck until you know you're not going to punch through. Milking it prevents punch through damage. This next little part I stole from one of my other videos. It was specifically on construction telehandlers, but the exact same principle exists. Now, Louis the Lightning Bug back in the 1980s told us you got to stay 10 feet away from power lines, but Louis the Lightning Bug didn't have OSHA regulations to comply with. You working in construction must comply with 1926, and it says manufacturer's recommendations. Manufacturer's recommendations right here have what is the voltage that's in those lines and how far you have to stay away from them as per the manufacturer as well as 1926. So stay away from the power lines. You need to know what the voltage is. That way you know how far you have to keep the tip of that fork away from the power line, period. As well as the load, as well as anything else. Some of the forklifts may actually have something like this in it that talks about 1926, 1419. And all this is talking about is traveling safely. And if you need to, get a wing walker. Get someone out there, not right next to the forklift, but near it to where they can see what you can't. Again, or go backwards. Some of your forklifts may reference OSHA 1926-404, talking about suspended loads, but that is only for hanging something off of a jib, not hanging crap off the forklift however you want to rig stuff up. You cannot just hook random stuff to the forklift and let it dangle below it. You would have to hang it off of a jib, and we're not covering that training in this class. This training is not going to cover using a man basket, nor is it going to cover using attachments, nor is it going to cover using extension fork. All of these will have additional training. So the first place we're going to look is your company's safety manual, but I don't know your company, so I can't tell you what your safety rules are. But that's the first place we're going to look. Then we're going to look at the actual equipment manual, the operator's manual, and see what rules they tell us we have to play by. And that'll be the number 2 thing we look at. Next, let's look at OSHA. Now, we already know from looking at the equipment manual, we're looking at 1926-1408 power line and 1926-1419 signal person. And depending on what you have that you're moving around, chemicals may come into play, but that's a whole different section. We're assuming in this class you're not moving chemical. Oh, but there is a chemical that's in that vehicle that you're probably going to have to deal with, and that is fuel. And so if there's diesel or if there's gasoline in that piece of equipment, now they have to have hazardous chemicals training specifically on the type of fuel that's in that piece of equipment. And because now you have a combustion engine here, you got to have a way to put out a fire just in case this fuel does catch on fire or the machine itself catches on fire, which means we have to have fire protection training as well as fire extinguisher usage and inspection training. And I hope you're not operating on a public road, because now you're looking at Department of Transportation training as well. And if you're hanging it on the hook, don't forget 1926-404. Assuming you've had all of this training, we are going to go very fast, so feel free to use the pause button as well as the rewind button on your device. So first, we're going to pull out our OSHA regulations 1926 manual. Then we're going to flip over and we're going to look for the word forklift. And as you can see right here, it says forklift. Look under powered industrial trucks. So we flip over to powered industrial trucks and look at the regulations that apply to it. Let's take a look. 602 Charlie says that this applies to lifting and hauling equipment other than what's covered in Subpart M. Subpart N covers helicopters, hoists, elevators, and conveyors. So if you're dealing with any of that, don't look here. And then in true OSHA fashion, 602 Charlie 1 says, industrial trucks shall meet the requirements of 1926-600. So let's go look at 600. All equipment left unattended at night, adjacent to a highway in normal use, or adjacent to construction areas where work is in progress, shall have appropriate lights or reflectors or barricades equipment appropriate lights or reflectors to identify the location of the equipment. Alpha 2. A safety tire rack cage or equivalent protection shall be provided and used when inflating, mounting, or dismounting tires installed on splints, rims, or rims equipped with locking rings or similar devices. Alpha 3 is blank. Alpha 3.1 is talking about when you're working on the machine, like physically doing maintenance on the machine, which nobody here is qualified for. Alpha 3.2. Whenever the equipment is parked, the parking brake shall be set. Equipment parked on inclines shall have wheels chalked and parking brakes set. Alpha 4, the use, care, and charging of all batteries shall conform to the requirements of subpart K of this part, which we're not going to cover right now. Alpha 5, all cab glass shall be safety glass or equivalent that introduces no visible distortion affecting the safe operation of any machine covered by the subpart. Alpha 6 is talking again about the electrical voltage and how close you can be to the lines unless they've been de-energized or where you have insulating barriers. Alpha 6.1 talks about the ratings and how close you can be, but we've already looked at the graph, so that'll be literally the graph we already put up on the screen. 6.2 is talking about clearance again. 6.3 is talking about clearance. 6.4, a person shall be designated to observe clearance of the equipment and give timely warning for all operations where it is difficult for the operator to maintain the desired clearance by visual means. Meaning, if you are anywhere near those approach boundaries for high voltage lines in the air, you need to have a watch person. Now, this one's talking about the approach boundary, and sometimes you can use boom guards, insulated links, or proximity warning devices, but this is more aiming towards cranes. Alpha 6.6, any overhead wire shall be considered to be energized line unless and until the person owning the such line or the electrical utility authorities indicate that it is not energized line and it has been visibly grounded. Alpha 6.7 talks about working near transmission towers. 6.7a, b, and c talk more about working near transmission towers. 600a.7 talks about railroad cars, and 600b is reserved for later usage. And finally, we can get back to 602. 602.1 says that the rated capacity should be clearly visible to the operator, even if there's some kind of auxiliary removable counterweights. Charlie 1.2 says no modifications or additions which affect the capacity or safe operation of the equipment shall be made without the manufacturer's written approval, and then it goes into how to do that. Charlie 1.3, if a load is lifted by two or more trucks working in unison, the proportion of the total load carried by any one truck shall not exceed its capacity. It is talking about a tandem lift. It is not talking about this stupidity. In this picture, everybody here should be subject to disciplinary action, and these two operators should be fired. Steering or spinner knobs shall not be attached to the steering wheel unless the steering mechanism is of a type that prevents road reactions from causing the steering hand wheel to spin. The steering knob shall be mounted within the periphery of the wheel. We're not going to talk about high-lift rider industrial trucks because those are designed to pick up the person, like to get up on shelves and stuff like that. That is not the forklift training that you're receiving here, so we're not going to talk about this. The next one here says that the forklift must comply with ANSI B56, and if we go back and look at the user manual for that piece of equipment, you'll see here it complies with ANSI B56.6, so you're going to go on that. Unauthorized personnel shall not be permitted to ride on powered industrial trucks. And what that means is no, 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 and no. Only person that should be on that vehicle is the operator in the driver's seat with their seatbelt on. Personnel baskets will not be covered in either one of these. Again, personnel baskets we're not covering. We come down to 602 Delta, and it says Powered Industrial Truck Operator Training. Go look at 1910-178L. So let's go take a look at that. The employer shall ensure that each powered industrial truck operator is competent to operate a powered industrial truck safely, as demonstrated by the successful completion of the training and evaluation specified in this paragraph. Prior to permitting an employee to operate a powered industrial truck, except for training purposes, the employer shall ensure that each operator successfully completed the training required by this paragraph, except as permitted by L5. Trainees may operate a powered industrial truck only under direct supervision of a person who has knowledge, training, and experience to train operators and evaluate their competence, and where such operation does not endanger the trainee or other employees. Training shall consist of a combination of formal instruction, practical training, and evaluation of the operator's performance in the workplace. All operator training and evaluation shall be conducted by persons who have knowledge, training, and experience to train powered industrial truck operators and evaluate their competence. Training program content. Powered industrial truck operators shall receive initial training in the following topics, except in topics which the employer can demonstrate are not applicable to the safe operation of the truck in the employer's workplace. Truck-related topics. Operating instructions, warnings, and precautions for that type. Differences between the truck and an automobile. Truck controls and instrumentation, where they are located, what they do, and how they work. Engine or motor operation, steering and maneuvering, visibility, including restrictions due to loading. Fork and attachment adaptation, operation and use limitations, vehicle capacity, vehicle stability. Any vehicle inspection and maintenance that the operator will be required to perform, refueling and or charging and recharging of the batteries. Operating limitations. Any other operating instructions, warning, or precautions listed in the operator's manual for the type of vehicle that the employee is being trained to operate. Workplace-related topics. Surface conditions where the vehicle will be operated. Composition of loads to be carried and load stability. Load manipulation, stacking and unstacking. Pedestrian traffic in areas where the vehicle will be operated. Narrow aisles and other restricted places where the vehicle will be operated, hazardous locations where the vehicle will be operated, ramps and other slope surfaces that could affect the vehicle's stability, closed environments or other areas where insufficient ventilation or poor vehicle maintenance could cause a buildup of carbon monoxide or diesel exhaust, or other unique or potentially hazardous environmental conditions in the workplace that could affect safe operation. 178L3, the requirements of this section. This is why I have to tell you all of this, is because OSHA says I have to tell you all of this. Refresher training and evaluation. Refresher training, including an evaluation of the effectiveness of that training, shall be conducted as required by paragraph L42 to ensure that the operator has the knowledge and the skills needed to operate the powered industrial truck safely. Refresher training and relevant topics shall be provided to the operator when the operator has been observed to operate the vehicle in an unsafe manner. The operator has been involved in an accident or a near-miss incident. The operator has received an evaluation that reveals the operator is not operating the truck safely. The operator is assigned to a different type of truck, or a condition in the workplace changes in a manner that could affect safe operation of the truck. An evaluation of each powered industrial truck operator's performance shall be conducted at least once every 3 years. 178L5 is talking about avoidance of duplicate training. So if I have like 3 forklifts that I operate on this one job site, and I want my employees to be able to hop into all 3 of them, pretty simple. I give them a generic forklift training class, and then I zero in the specific functions and hazards that each one of them have. I don't have to repeat the whole class, just narrow down on all 3 trainings for each one of these pieces of equipment. And finally, 178L6 certification. The employer shall certify that each operator has been trained and evaluated as required by paragraph L. The certification shall include the name of the operator, date of the training, date of the evaluation, and the identity of the person performing the training or evaluation. 178L7 doesn't apply to us, and 178L8 is optional, so that'll be up for the competent person for your company to decide if they want to maneuver into that. Now, I know that was a lot, but understand, if the vendor has ever come out to you, whether it's JLG, Genie, any of these rental companies, if they've ever come out to you and delivered forklift training, understand, they didn't give you forklift training, they gave you equipment familiarization training. You were supposed to have forklift training from your company, and then they come out and do a familiarization version of training. That is why going through this, and you probably feel like your head is spinning, whereas going through their training, you could literally smoke a cigarette, go use the bathroom halfway through, and still not miss anything. There's a big difference in forklift training versus familiarization training. Having had this, as well as anything that your company wants to put on top, this will be considered forklift training. Now we're going to take a look at some absolute failures. Here we go. Every one of these videos, you're going to have a moment where they cross the stupid threshold. And that is when an operator takes their brain and chunks it right out the window and does something stupid. They compromise safety, they compromise policy, and they do something that results in failure. Why are you standing here? Why is this aisleway blocked? And what is he trying to do? This is going to end bad right here.
Hold your orbit. Guns, pull off. We're trying to come around
Stupid threshold, anybody? Why are these stacks so close to here? Why is he carrying that large of a material in that little access way? And do you really think he's not going to hit right here? Come on now. We've jumped right past stupid threshold into incompetency. This is incompetent. First, none of those materials up there are secured. And what makes it even worse is look here and look there. You can see it was secured at one time, but these intelligent human beings cut it all open. Second, the first thing you do, you don't come picking up, you need to angle back. He is not angling back, thus we're definitely going to have an issue. Third, why is this guy standing here? Get him away. There's no need to be picking up stuff like this with somebody right here that can get hurt. But safety, Tavern, he's got steel toe boots on. Great, that'll protect his toes. What about the top of the foot? What about the ankle? What about anything else that could get hurt if a package falls down and lands exactly right there on his foot? How many people do you want to have broken ankles? Because that's how many people you should have standing around while you're jacking around with loose load. This is absolutely incompetency. This one takes a little while for it to actually progress, but you can already see this dude is zipping around way too fast, and just look, you can see he's not looking at where he's going. You must look at where you're going. If you can't see around the load, turn around and go backward. Anybody want to guess what's about to happen? That's right. Are you freaking kidding me? You have warped into the stupid zone. Why are you standing there? Are y'all even qualified? Those are some real cute shoes, but I doubt they're the appropriate apparel for material handling. Are you angling down or are you angling back? And why are you offloading this on an incline? Are the forks long enough to actually pick this piece of equipment up? Everything about this is stupid. Just stupid. I didn't catch this before, but is this where you've already done this before? Have you already tipped something else over? Because that's what that looks like to me. Oh goody, another Darwin Award winner. We're traveling forward and we cannot see what we're driving into, and we're about to turn a blind corner. Bring the forks down. We never travel and we cannot see. If this situation is happening, go backwards. But here's the worst part. You're overloading a forklift. It is not designed to be driven elevated that tall with that much weight on it, and none of the materials are actually secured. They're just placed on it. Let's see what's going to happen to these award winners. Really? You can't tell this dude to move his car? Are you kidding me? Get that out of here. Oh goody, now we have 2 people watching. That's good. And now we pick up this genius right in the middle of what's already happened. They had way too much weight, they picked it up, they extended too far out, and as they extended the load up, they reached that fulcrum point and the back tires came off the ground. They ended up dumping the load, and now they're going to swing back because it's a fulcrum point. That's it for this warehouse forklift video. Hope you learned something. Remember, nothing we said means anything. Go ask the competent person for your company, for your job site, for further direction, and get out there and be blessed.